Happy Friday! Friday! It's here! This is the unofficial Game of Thrones Future Game of Thrones Challenge. And joining me today in the booth in the hot box today is Matthew Encina. What is up, Matthew?
Woo, we're not hotboxing in here, but it is kind of warm in here.
Wait, is that a term?
It is a term. Arryn would know.
Yeah.
They are wearing their sunglasses out there.
They are, okay. And then joining us as always is Arryn and Ricky. Arryn's on the edit. Ricky's reading your comments on YouTube.
And doing
What Up Academy?
annotations.
How you guys doing?
Yeah.
You guys look very collegiate today, gentlemen.
We're trying to be professional.
Is that the professional look right now?
Keyword is trying.
They're trying.
All right, you
It's
got
Friday.
your caps on.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to give you guys a little warning up front today. We're going to go pretty deep on this. Not only are we going to review the work that was submitted, kind of our top 50, and then we're going to narrow it down to our top 5. There'll be a drum roll probably. And we're actually going to get on the box. It's been a little while since we've done this. You guys have been asking for it. Let's see if you really want this, because we're going to do it. Okay, so fasten your seatbelts, you guys. It's going to be a long one for today, so let's get learning. Okay, the 3-part design challenge. As a quick review, in case you haven't seen the original design challenge, it looks something like this. There's part 1, where we're asking you to design a sigil, which is an emblem or a coat of arms for a house, a great house from the House of Westeros, right? And here are the different houses. Let's go down the list. House Stark, Lannister, Targaryen, Baratheon, Tyrell, Greyjoy, Tully, Arryn, and Martell. Those are the great houses, okay? So, I already mentioned what's a sigil. They look something like this. And if you think about it, in the context of the show itself, if there are armies marching on a battlefield and you have multiple houses, it's really, really important that we're able to recognize each house really quickly, because I don't want to kill the wrong team. We need to know that. So colors help, bold graphics, and being able to read something from far away really, really help. All right, here are the details to the original challenge part 1, which is I gave you guys a shape, a crest, to fit your design into. And I don't know if you figured it out, but the ones who filled out that shape the best probably stood to have an advantage. So if you get really detailed and borders and all that kind of stuff, might not work as well.
Right.
Okay, so here are some other details to this that needed to be black and white. You're going to use up to 3 colors and definitely no gradients. I should have mentioned this, but I didn't really want anybody to do any Photoshop work with textures or anything like that. That was implied in the gradients, but I wasn't clear. But that's totally okay. Things that we're looking for, Matthew and myself, is it legible? Is it unique? Does it feel appropriate to the house? And last but not least, is it bold? Okay, so the 50 most liked designs move on to the judges' top 5. So each round, you, the audience, will be empowered once again. This is like The Voice, the TV show, where we pick the finalists, but you get to determine the winner. This way, it's super democratic. You take a turn, we take a turn, and you take the final turn. So each round, we're going to award points to the top 5 finalists, and we're also going to give extra points to the winner of that challenge.
That's right.
So why did I say this? Because as there's parts 2 and 3 to the challenge, we'll assign points. And so the person with the most points at the end of this will win some goods. Some goods. I mean, it's not a great package, but it's our package. We'll work on a shoestring budget over here at the Future. All right.
No, it's a great package.
So here we go. All right. Your work. Here we go. Without further ado. For House Baratheon, here are the ones that we picked out as, or I guess with your help, the top 50. And we've culled it down a little bit because it's a little bit too much to review 50. And as we go along the way, we'll talk about it a little bit. House Baratheon, their symbol is a stag. A male deer. I believe that's what a stag is, right? A stag. So it's got its horns. I don't know what they're called. Antlers, rack, or something like that. And here we go.
Ooh.
And House Baratheon currently, spoiler alert.
Hey!
No. Currently, I mean, from the beginning of the story, House Baratheon is running Westeros. It's the king.
right.
The king of all the kingdoms, okay? So here's
That's
number
right.
1.
Matthew's
It's
catching
got-
up still.
Yeah.
I'm on
He's
season 5.
Season 5, okay. And you guys don't need to have watched the series. In most cases, if you're designing an airline, you don't have to own the airline. You don't even have to have flown in the airline. You just need to do proper research, and you figure out things that are appropriate for that house. Anyways, this one I think was voted in because it has a really cool etched look. This shows me that this person really knows how to illustrate, and it's got some really nice line work in there, Matthew.
Yeah, it's very ornate. I love the use of the space in there, how this person had taken advantage of the shape of the crest there. And then you're right, like all the little ornate details almost look like woodblock illustration or etching in there. Just, it drew my eye. So from afar, it already had a bold shape. And then as I look in, it had some interesting details to pick apart.
Yes, and as we were reviewing many of the submissions, it's kind of hard to nail the head of the deer from the front position. It's like, what does a deer look like, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously, when we see the antlers, we know what it looks like. But what I also like about this particular execution is it has a crown on it because they're the current kings of the land in terms of the storyline, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of nice that Lillian Figueroa, a.k.a. at Cuban Nerd, did this. So good job, Lillian. Let's keep moving on. And Ricky, you're monitoring the comments live on our channel, right?
And doing annotations, yes,
okay,
sir.
doing annotations. So let me know how many people are tuning in right now, Ricky.
Well, let me...
We're at 126.
126. Let's see if we can't have this grow by the end of the stream. It's not just us announcing the winners. It's also us doing some design work. We've picked 2 marks to kind of just work on top of to hopefully provide you some insight into what we would have done. Okay.
So we need the audience to share this stream a little bit. We need them to get that, design community going.
Get it going. Okay, so here's another submission. This is slide 18. This one looks really good. It's got a really nice, distinctive silhouette. The deer's kind of looking over its shoulder like, what's up, man? What's up with you? It's got a really interesting interpretation of the antlers, too. It's a little bit more organic, and I like it.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like looks like coral or something like that.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Right.
I just was thinking like tree branches or something like that.
Right.
It looks really dope, and still within the confines of the design challenge, only 2 colors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Red and yellow, I suppose. I guess black you can count as not a color. And I also like it that implies dimensionality. It's hard to have a mark like this and make it feel like it's not totally flat.
Mm-hmm.
So the deer turning its head with a little highlight underneath its neck is really nice. There's some little subtleties here in terms of the nose and the way the ears pointed down and the eyes. It looks really, really good.
Right.
I like it.
I think one note to say on the horns, what I like about it too is that it feels a little bit more aggressive because of the shape. So, these things are things that I read into. If I'm an enemy on the battlefield and I saw Rose, House Tyrell on the other side, I'm like, eh. But if I see this, it's like, oh my gosh, these guys, they're killers.
Step back.
Yeah, step back. Like they look aggressive. So I like that. So,
and I think that's something that's really important. If you're going to be one of the great houses and you have a sigil, it's like, Martell. Is it the House Martell with roses?
Yes.
It's like...
Or Tyrell.
Tyrell. His roses, like, okay. But I think you want to have a little edge to it. So I like this a lot.
Right.
Okay, good job. This is from Jessica Lionel. And she's at Lionel Designs. Beautiful. Okay, next up. Look at this one, Matthew.
Ooh.
This one's super graphic. And I like this one a lot because of a couple different reasons. One is they utilize as much of the shield crest emblem shape as possible. Mm-hmm. So this is tricky to get the legs to kind of fit that shape. Mm-hmm. It's really nice. And I also like, and this is a very unusual way of treating the antlers, that it almost looks like a saw blade or something like that.
Right.
Like it's also going to cut you. And it's one of the most unique interpretations of the antlers that we saw.
Right, and it's still flat, yet it has a lot of dimensionality, right? The horns, the way that they're illustrated there implies an angle, yet the way that the profile is and the body is, it's totally flat. So there's something very unique going on. And then the subtle details of the back leg kind of breaking out with the yellow line, breaking up the back leg. These are nice little things that add dimensionality, even though this is inherently 2D. So I thought that this also, it just was just very dynamic in how it used the limitations of what might be possible for this sigil.
I also like that of the marks that we've seen so far, this is the first full body House Baratheon that we've seen of a stag, right? And the way that the legs are moving, it feels like it's prancing. So there's a little bit of a strut, like, hey, we the king, step off, 'cause
right.
We got this.
Right.
It's kind of prancing about, right? So I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. The chest is puffed out. The head is up. It feels very proud. Yep. I know that they're definitely a proud
Chin
house.
Up, right?
Yep.
Right.
So these are all things. These are qualities that we could bake in the story or see the story kind of shine through of the heritage of the house and where they come from, what they stand for.
One little comment I would make here is the antlers, the horizontal shape is nice and graphic. I think I would have just reduced that down a little bit to give a little more weight to the rest of the antlers, because it looks like eyelashes right now. So the proportion between the horizontal crossbar and the antlers spiking up, I think could be a little bit more like the way they look on the ends, the proportion. So the ends look really strong, but the ones in between, Matthew, you know what I'm talking about? So the left and right parts of the antler look really strong and thick, proportionate to the horizontal stroke.
Right.
But inside, the interior antler parts look a little bit thin and dainty. So that's the one thing that I would suggest that you look at, okay? But really good job. The other thing I would say is maybe the negative shape of the ear could be a little bit smaller, so it's just a nice thick shape for the ear. We don't want to get lost in detail at all. Okay.
Yeah, and some people are commenting too. It's like they like this. They have their own suggestions. Like one person suggesting, I don't really like the eye. You know, that's debatable because the eye is the window to the soul, the doorway into the soul. So when you look at that, if you wanted it to look more aggressive, we can definitely use more geometric shapes in there. This person chose to use a round circle there, so it definitely has a little bit more of a friendly feeling to it. It's a little bit softer, so maybe that was the intent. I'm not sure, right? But those are subtle things that you can do with just one tiny element like that. The eye shape definitely can convey the tone of what the position of the animal or subject is trying to portray there.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with the eye whatsoever. Just keeping it super graphic, geometric. There's a lot of design decisions that are made here that I think show me that this is a well-crafted thing. So good job, Taejin Kim at, I think it's TJK_design. Good job. Now, the reason why I say this is because oftentimes people say, that's not a logo, that's not a mark. And I just can't really tell you all the time that I know what a logo or mark looks like. But usually when it looks like an illustration where it's too true to life, then I feel like it's going into illustration land. It's not like a hard formula that I can tell you X percentage of this, but simplifying things, interpreting through the artist or the designer's eye is really, to me, what makes it a graphic mark, a symbol, not just an illustration. Okay? I realize I'm off center here. I'm going to move myself over. Okay, let's move on. Next up. God, my eyesight is just going here, but let's take a look at this one. So this one eschews the entire head and the body for the antlers and the crown itself. There's some really interesting things going on here. First, it's utilizing a lot of the shape. It contours to the shape itself. Again, good choice there. It feels like they're flames, so it's between antlers and flames, like a hot rod. I think that's pretty cool. It's got a crown in there, and I like that a lot. My one critique of this one is that the crown feels a little like clip art. It doesn't feel as custom. It doesn't seemingly keep in the same visual language as the antlers. Now, you'll notice the antlers, they don't come to a sharp point. They have a little curved circular thing. So it has a certain vibe to it. Yet when I look at the crown itself, it's super sharp and it's very precise. And I think this is where you want to kind of keep the tonality in a similar universe, and it's thrown me off just a little bit. Your thoughts, Matthew?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the qualities of the crown and the antlers are a little too different. I'd rather them be more contrasty in terms of how different they are, or make them very, very similar. So I feel like those two things feel like they're coming from different worlds a little bit. I do like the use of the horns in this crest shape. So I definitely think that part is the strength of this. And there's something interesting to be said that that you see the antlers holding up the crown. There's something about that, and I think about their history and their background, and I think about their support for the throne, support for the crown, and them also trying to claim that they are the true rightful kings throughout the series. So it's an interesting mark.
Yeah, we better be careful about how we describe these things. The hardcore Game of Thrones fans like, you guys don't know what you're talking about.
All right, well, we'll stay clear of this.
We should stay clear of
we'll
all
just
that
talk
stuff.
design.
We know that they're the kings.
That's
okay,
right.
the kings of the kingdom. Okay, let's look at the next one.
Ooh.
This is from Caitlin Tyndall. And first of all, I want to tell you guys that we're able to download the template, and using the template and keeping everything super simple allows it to fit within our grid and makes it super clean. A lot of you guys are getting really creative with changing colors and changing all the information at the bottom. You're just creating heartache for us a little bit.
Putting images in the background.
Yeah, we don't need any of that stuff.
Breaking
we just
all
want to
kinds
see
of
your
rules.
sigil.
Right.
That's all. Be confident in your sigil and don't worry about anything else. So this one's from Caitlin Trindle. And I don't know, Matthew, but I think thus far, all the submissions have been women. The names are all women, and I love this. This is fantastic. So great way to represent women. Awesome job, designers. So here we go again. Here's another stag. This one's like kind of kicking up a little bit, a more aggressive stance, and it's also turning its head. There's some interesting decisions being made with the antlers. They're not symmetrical, which throws me off a little bit. And they look a little bit like thorns on this one, which would have been great for Tyrell.
Right.
Great for Tyrell. I also like that there's some kind of lighting effect being applied here, so that there seems to be some dimensionality, but the lighting effect is very flat. I would have preferred, actually, if you got in here and picked a lighting source and did a little bit more with contouring, so that we see the edges kind of lit as if they're dimensional, not just front lighting and making everything look flat.
Right. So you're just saying, right, I see. So the way that the lighting is applied, the shadows are getting thicker around the edges of the contours of the silhouette, and it feels like we have a front light the way that this is, but you're looking for like a side light or three-quarter light.
A three-quarter light would be very dramatic, maybe upper right pointing down towards it. I think that would look really, really, really good.
In terms of the antlers, I personally like the antlers here just because I don't mind the asymmetricalness because of how it fills the top left of the sigil here. I like how the use of space is being used overall. This is very dynamic. So what's different about this versus some of the other ones we just saw, this is going from bottom left to top right, and it has this dynamic feel where it almost feels like this stag is trying to break out of this sigil shape. So there's something that's very inherently dynamic. There's a lot of motion that I personally really like. I like how all the elements kind of fill this space and take advantage of that. And again, with the antlers, I know it feels like thorns, but it does have that a little bit of aggression to it, right? And their house saying is ours is the fury, right? I believe.
I don't know. I trust you on that.
According to the wiki that we
of course.
Ours is the fury, right?
If that's what it says, Matthew. That's exactly what it is. Okay, a couple of things I want to point out to this one. I'm aside from the lighting and my issues with the antlers, I'm curious. Try this. Take the right side of the stag and the antlers and just mirror it to the left and see if it impacts your design negatively or not. Because I think in a lot of these sigils, balance is really important. It wants to be strong, right? It wants to feel like it's not going to tip over on itself. The next little thing I want to point out is these little lines that you've added that follow the contour of the shield, the shape of the crest itself. I don't think you need it. I think that's a lot of detail that you don't need. I'll give you another thought here is if you were to make the highlight actually a black shape and put it behind the stag, I think that would look pretty dope. Because then from afar, you're going to see this really like nice yellow and black contrasting shape. And as you get closer, you'll know that the stag is breaking free from it. So if you connect the top parts of the highlights, so the top part of it is yellow and then the bottom part is inverted in black, and you put the stag in there, I think it'll look really cool. That's another way to do it. Hey guys, you've heard me say this many times before, focus on shape and not lines. Symbols, logos, focus on shapes, not lines. That's what we're looking for. Okay, good job, Caitlin. Very good. Let's move on. Okay, this is now from Amanda Liu.
Ooh.
Amanda Liu, super graphic. Wow, this one's really nice. Matthew, what's your take on this?
I love how bold this is. I like that it's flat. I like the little hint of white on the face there. We were just talking about lighting earlier, and there's ways to imply that. I think this is an interesting way to give the front-facing view of this stag a little bit of dimension. So I like that a lot. I like how the horns are treated here. It's very graphic. We don't have all the secondary antlers breaking out, but you just have all of this kind of straight up. So it feels very firm. It feels very strong in terms of its stance. You know, it feels like a very proud animal here. So there's a lot going on in here. I just love how simple it is and how boiled down this is. If seeing it from far away, if I squint my eyes, it's very legible. Nice contrast, nice shape.
It passed the squint test.
Past the squint test.
Yes, I like how geometric the antlers are here. Very nice design, very balanced, symmetrical, really strong. My one critique here, as we're looking to pick the 5 finalists here, I was just like, if we took away the antlers, what animal is this? And no, it's really hard to read a deer's face from the front, from straight on. So that's what the one thing is like, what can we do to make this look a little bit more like a deer? And it could look like a long-nosed cow. There's a couple things in there that just throw me off a little bit, but really, Amanda, beautiful job. Great job. And that tells me something. We have a very educated and talented audience that's watching this show, because I'm just overall as an impression in terms of what was submitted. You never know with these kinds of competitions, Matthew. You never know who's going to show up, what kind of energy and effort they're going to put in, but I really like this. And there's one other little detail I want to point out that was really nice. Look at the way the bottom of the deer is finished off of the stag.
Yes,
there's this kind of jagged edge, so it's kind of suggests like the coat of fur, that there's some mane on this thing. And I don't know anything about deer, but it looks really regal and just like I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
There's something really nice. So those
really
little
like that.
details matter.
What do you think about the little white eye patch? Did you already talk about that?
Yeah, Matthew talked about the lighting on half the deer's face, the stag's face.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only way that you might give this dimension so that it's legible as a shape in terms of what the head shape is going to look like. But I think what Chris was talking about earlier, another way to solve this potentially is by having the deer turn profile. If you have the turn profile, then you can clearly see the shape of the face. I don't know if that would destroy it, but in the earlier slide, the other exploration that we saw, there was definitely a version of that where it is angled and it is flat. So there's a way to solve it if you play around with that. Like that is an interesting one. And if you go to the other one where it looks like it's trotting, like this one obviously is still very dimensional. And just like a lot of like Egyptian hieroglyphs and a lot of old illustration, they do these funny things where they take something that's at an angle and they flatten it out. So I think there's ways to solve this that might be applicable to this graphic version that we're looking at.
Yeah, potentially. Sometimes when we get into reducing something down, being very reductive in our design process, we have to be very careful, because now you only have a few lines to describe the image and you need to just pick the right lines. Now, looking back at this thing, I have one other little comment that I'm noticing right now. When white goes to yellow, there's very low contrast between those two. So if you look at the highlight on half the stag's head and as it connects to the nose, the difference between the white and yellow are so minor. I just think you got to go with a white nose. And I got a suggestion here for you, Amanda, if I may, is if you take the bottom of the nose and you connect it to that white shape and just made it all white. Okay, that's one way. Another way is just to highlight an edge of the nose so that it starts to disappear as you go to the right. I think that would also add a little dimensionality to this thing to create the illusion that it's protruding forward and it's not completely flat.
Right.
So just some little tweaks there.
I was thinking too, we might be able to notch out. See, if you see on my face, there's a shadow right here on my chin. That could be like a graphic slice that we take out on the front view of this stag that might give the head a little bit more shape. That could be interesting as well.
Yes, that too. Yep. Okay. All right, let's move on to House Targaryen. Fire and blood. The House Targaryen probably had the most submissions because it's got dragons and Daenerys Targaryen, the mother of dragons, breaker of chains. You know,
blood of the first man.
Blood of the first man. What else we got?
Aaron says we know. All of the things.
All of the things.
Yeah. Yes. First of her name, whatever. Daenerys is Khaleesi. Yeah, I mean, she's a heroine in this story, and just dragons are super cool. So let's take a look at the submissions here. Here's one from James. Is it Betts? Can't read that.
Looks like it.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. It's James Betts at Betts_design.
Ooh.
So this one's really nice. This is got a dragon, and it's kind of completed in a circle, and it's also got this nice little detail of the spine. I have some thoughts on this. This is one of the ones where we're going to dive in a little deeper, and I'm going to see if I can't just make a few critical tweaks to it to see if I can't sharpen it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I know we want to use the word make it better. I just want to sharpen it up a little bit. There's a couple things that bother me up front. One is, where are the wings, and the tail? It's all kind of blending together a little bit to create this shape. And I think you could easily get rid of the tail part that's completing the upper part of the circle. We could just remove that and show the wings a little bit more. I think that would look really cool.
I think you could just imply that circle there, right? If
you
knock that
Let
out.
your eye finish the circle.
Correct.
You don't need it. And then there's this little white shape that looks like it's stabbing it in the belly. What is that?
I wonder if it's the end of the tail. Like it's kind of coming around and that's the end of the tail, because the tail sometimes has a little point.
You know what it is? I think I know what it is. It's the negative
now.
shape of the bottom of the wing. You see there's a little thing on the wing there, Matthew? And then there's just the gap between the bottom of the wing and the belly. it's creating a really awkward shape there. So
I think it's what Matthew said, no?
End of the tail.
I agree with Matthew as well.
Well, the thing is, like, because we're having the debate, it's not clear.
Right.
yeah, it's just
that's already
it's
an
a little
issue.
odd.
There
Right?
you go.
A little
yeah.
odd is all. Okay. And the other thing that I think, just for my own preference here, is to use lines that have thick and thins, not to use just strokes that are linear or monostroke, because it makes the thing look really flat. Those are just my comments, and I'm going to try my best to jump in here and do something about it, but we'll see what happens, okay? No promises. Okay, next one. Boom. This one is super cool. This is from Aaron Gross. Aaron Gross.
Ooh, very
and this
different
is
take.
so graphic.
Yeah.
Ricky, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay, so Aaron Gross submitted this one. I think Aaron submitted quite a few, and this one's really lovely. In his abstraction, I think we're losing a little bit of the dragon's head,
Right.
and I think that's the only thing. I think, gosh, if he could have worked that out, that would have been pretty cool.
But you know, the interesting thing is, even without reading the description of this, I already knew which house it was for. So I think he was definitely right on the line between, is it legible and can you understand which house this represents?
Yes.
I think because it has the 3 heads on there, you know that it represents the 3 dragons. So
Yeah.
it's still pretty good, but you're right. Little
It's good.
details matter.
It's really good, guys. Come on, I'm not going to even pretend like I can draw this.
I thought it's also clever too. If you see, at first I was wondering why is the tail broken on the bottom left, but it's really just the tail curling.
Yeah, it's
So-
just a loop.
Yeah, I like that. So that threw me for a little loop there, and I definitely enjoyed that.
Okay, I think the reason why there's a little loop there is because probably, I'm imagining this, when he was designing this, there was a little negative space there that he wanted to fill. So he wanted to put something in there so the loop made sense. That could have easily also been solved by extending the foot out a little bit so that we don't have the loop. But you like the loop, it's all good, it's there. Awesome. Ricky, did you want to say something?
Nope.
Has the audience grown any bit at all?
221.
221.
222 as far as I'm seeing.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
People
I hope
are,
you guys
people are doing
enjoying
a lot
this.
of critiques. There's not so many questions as
Okay.
far as they're adding
Yeah.
in their own critiques.
Yeah, I don't suspect too many questions. Just you guys are just bringing in your own points of view, which I love.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another one. This one's from Kento Yoshida. And Kento, I believe, also submitted several things. And this is a really beautiful drawing of dragons. It's a really nice drawing. So, Kento, I don't know if you drew this, but if you did, you're a really good illustrator. I can see that you know how to draw. Okay, now having said that, I like the idea also of this infinity where each dragon kind of melts into itself, right? And there's 3 of them. These kinds of designs are pretty hard to do. Unless you're a Japanese school child, because that's apparently what all Japanese children know how to do, is to draw symbols that repeat like this, right? I watched the video on that. It was like amazing. No wonder they're so good.
Yeah.
There's some legibility issues here, and there's a little bit too much detail in it for me personally. And I think it would have been much stronger if you did it where the dragon was eating its own tail. So it wasn't just literally the same dragon overlapping itself.
Right. And one other thing, I think on all of his submissions, he threw over this scratchy texture.
Yeah.
Even though I like the grungy stuff, like it's very hard to judge these things because now you're adding another layer of something distraction where it almost feels like you're hiding the details of the original sigil. So I understand why you did it, but you know, it's for me as somebody trying to review this, it's a little distracting.
I don't think you need it.
I don't think you need it at all.
It's a really good mark. Be confident in your design skills. And I think Kento is probably just trying to plus it. Like, I'll go the
Right.
extra mile. And sometimes we have to know when enough is enough.
Right.
And don't lose ourselves in the process of displaying it.
Right.
Okay, so oddly enough, here's another submission from Kento too. So Kento loves dragons. This looks, you know what this looks like?
What?
Gazura. Doesn't it? Gazura. Right? I mean, if you take away the horns. No? What did you say, Aaron?
Yellow flag.
Yellow flag.
No. You guys think it's a yellow flag, but that's how it's pronounced in Japan.
I see.
Like
So-
Adidas.
Gazura. The L's are pronounced as R's and the R's are pronounced as L's.
That is strange.
Yes.
The more you know.
It's not like Adidas. There you go again, Ricky. It's totally different.
There's an analogy that
No,
works.
you've learned nothing from last night's 2-hour conversation. Anyways, I like this illustration a lot. It's a really good representation of a dragon. I would wear this on a t-shirt.
I was thinking the
I would
It's
wear
scary,
this on a
man.
t-shirt in a heartbeat. You've added some texture to this, and I think the texture on this case isn't distracting to me at all. It's a really nice drawing. Man, Kento, let's talk after this. Maybe you can illustrate some things for us. Some monsters. Is it Gaiju? No, what do they call monsters in
the big monsters?
Yeah, the big monsters. Gaiju?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is cool. Is it symmetrical?
It looks symmetrical to me.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. I couldn't tell, cause maybe it's just the little bits of texture that help rebalance it. Because normally I don't like stuff that's too symmetrical, but this is interesting. I do like.
I love symmetry. You know what? I just noticed right now too. The nostril of the dragon feels very much like an ape, a simian, and there's a human quality to it. That's also another thing that Japanese are really good at. Actually, in Eastern culture, dragons are not seen as this menacing thing as it is in Western culture. So they have much more humanistic qualities like eyebrows, beards. They're seen as wise protectors versus just creatures that destroy everything. That's just a difference in how cultures perceive certain symbols and imaginary creatures.
Does this pass the squint test for you?
No.
It doesn't. And I wanted to bring that up because even though the illustration is quite beautiful and ornate, if you squint at it, the face is completely gone. Because the black flag and the dark red of this that he chose, they're too close. So there's a contrast issue here that it's distracting.
So what if he made the face white? Would that be okay for you?
I mean, that would be interesting. I think definitely this is a value issue. So we'd probably have to tweak and see what might work, but definitely need a little bit more contrast in the value so that all this nice work doesn't get hidden. Because from far away, I wouldn't be able to tell what this is. Yeah.
Okay, so this is his Instagram is at KY logo for Kento Yoshida. I'm really curious in a little bit. I'm going to jump in and just look him up just because I want to see the rest of his work. Because I'm looking for an illustrator who knows how to draw like this. So let's see what happens. Yeah. Okay, let's move on then. The last submission for House Targaryen is this one from Ashraf. I'm not even trying to say the last name. It's Ashraf, right? And this is a super graphic reduction. And we saw one before where the head didn't quite look like a dragon. I think this one looks more like a dragon. And the wings are so abstract. It's really, really cool. My comment for you here is this. I wonder if this would look better if the border was thinner and the mark was bigger. I feel like the hierarchy is flipped on this, where the boldness comes from the border. I know why you did it, but I think we want to focus more on the symbol itself.
Right, and it also makes the dragons feel weak. It makes them feel small, and it makes them
they're
feel
like baby
timid.
Dragons.
Yeah, they're the baby dragons, right? But I think it would be better if it broke it. Like if you use a border like this, it might even be interesting if the wings break the edges of the border, so it feels like it's coming out. So you could do these little dimensional things where it gives it a little bit more energy and a little bit more kind of like a dynamic look, where you're playing with these flat elements to make it feel like it's coming forward or coming out. So there's like little things like that I could imagine. But I agree with you in terms of the hierarchy. It definitely needs to be flipped here. But I love the reduction. It's very interesting to read it right away because I know what it is, even though it's only a few lines. Yeah,
another way to do this is to scale up the dragons and to the point in which the borders end right there. And then take this inline, this border, and cut it. Cut it so it's just the bottom half, as if you dip the sigil in red paint. And then you just create a shape, and then the dragons can stand proud of that. So you can introduce a second color there, and I think that'd be nice. That way, from afar, you can recognize the shape right away. All right, let's move on to House and Greyjoy. We do not sew. We do not sew. They're the pirates of the show. Okay, first up, Enrique. Who's trying to call me during the live stream right now? Sorry, Matthew. My phone is buzzing. I hope it's not my mom or my kids. No, okay, it's probably something else. Okay, so this one is really, really interesting to me. Okay, so this is Enrique, and the reason why it's interesting to me, I mean, it's a squid or it's an octopus? No, this is a squid. It's a kraken.
It's a kraken.
It's a kraken. It's a giant squid, right? And they're the terrors of the seas. You can't mess around with them because they don't sew. They just steal things from people. They're pirates, essentially. And I look at this, I'm like, this is really cool, Mark. It reads, it's not an easy symbol to draw. And there's a second image in here that I see a skull in there, which is really well done.
That's cool.
They're the terrors of the sea. Look at that, you guys. It's pretty dope. And in this case, I think the border is not overpowering because there's enough weight and mass within the bottom part, the head of the kraken, that it works. Just good color choice, good rendering. What do you think, Matthew?
Yeah, I think it's very clever. I definitely like that. One thing I would like to say, I don't enjoy symmetry as much as you do. So I would love to see a variant of this where it's just slightly asymmetrical, where the tentacles on each side are just slightly offset, like one extends further than the other. Because I think you could still accomplish the same second read of the skull and give it a little bit more interest if it wasn't perfectly symmetrical. But that's just me. That's just my preference.
Okay, last one from this group is from Christopher Christopher Kiem. And this one's a really, really beautiful mark too.
I agree.
This is another Kraken, but it's done in very geometric way, so it looks like a beautiful pattern of circles until you step back. Wait a minute. The pirates, they're going to kill us. That's who they are. So it's kind of deceptive. From afar, it looks like a flower, and as soon as you start to figure it out, there's a great squid in there. It's awesome. Good job on this one.
Yeah, I like it because the tentacles feel very active, like they're moving, and they feel a little treacherous. It feels like these the Kraken tentacles, could just reach out and whip you in the face pretty soon. So there's a lot of interesting movement. Even though this one is symmetrical, this one is contained. It feels like it's about to unfurl and break out. So I really like that part of this this design.
It feels like a nuclear symbol to me because the black and yellow, and it kind of like has that same kind of shape for me.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Is it that biohazard symbol? Yeah.
That's the kind of feel I got.
Okay, let's move on. House Arryn, as high as honor. Up in the area of the Vale, there's a moon, a crescent moon, and a falcon, I believe. That's what the house symbol is. And there were quite a few submissions on this, so we can tell which houses are popular. Maybe you guys like birds and dragons, but okay, here we go. So this has the crescent moon at the top. It's creating a really nice shape. So here, this is done by Sylvain
Rati, maybe?
Rati. Okay, Sylvain, good job. Trying to complete the circle there with the wing, implying that those things are connected. Also very difficult to do. It's an interesting rendering of a falcon from atop. I think there's some decisions made here that kind of make it look a little less bird-like for me, but it's a really beautiful mark.
My favorite part actually is the colors of this one. There's an elegance to it, this muted purple and this muted gold.
Yeah.
It feels like those are very regal colors. Those are very royal colors. And there's something that's just really nice about the subtlety and how this is approached. So a combination of the simplicity of this as well as those muted colors really stood out for me.
So I guess they won you over with colors on this one.
Right. But I think for the shapes, I agree with you. I think there's just some issues that I have with the rendering and how the shapes could be completed here, because the bird doesn't quite read, and the crescent moon, I think, could use a little bit of work.
Yeah. It also doesn't quite read too, right? It needs to taper faster towards the end, I think.
I was thinking I had a thought. I don't know if you guys
You were thinking
noticed.
you had a thought?
Yeah.
Tell me about your thinking about thoughts.
It looks like there's a double image here, right?
Let's cut to your camera.
Oh, you want to cut to me?
Yeah, when you're talking.
Well,
it's
then
good
I
to
want
see
to
you.
talk about the mark, though, isn't it?
Okay, it's
easy?
fine. Yeah, go ahead.
So it's like if you step back, it's like a bird's face looking right at you.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
I guess.
So the wings are the eyes, I think he's saying.
Yeah, but
Right.
that's like an owl's eye or something. That's
Right.
not.
It doesn't look like a hawk, right? Or is that what we
falcon.
said? A falcon, sorry.
Yeah.
So even if that was the intent, which could be clever,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily read as a hawk.
I know what you mean, Aaron, because otherwise then it looks like a really strange looking set of eyes with a weird nose looking at you.
Right. That's what I think is like the main thing he was going for, right?
I don't think so.
Well, actually, you know what? Actually, it is. So
It is?
Sylvian.
You read it, Matthew?
Yeah. So this.
Okay. So Aaron's right.
I'm reading. Yeah.
Nice.
So
Okay.
replace the beige with the golden yellow.
Yeah.
This one soars against the moon. If you look closely, if you look further, the falcon's head. It's something. The falcon's head. He ran out of characters to type. But it's.
Well, no, that's not definitive. That's not definitive at all. But I'll give Aaron the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I know designers like to do these like double, triple images, There's already two images in here.
Right.
The crescent moon and the span of the wings with the falcon from the top view.
Right.
A lot of times you guys try to get too clever and you try to make everything look like everything else, and it just becomes a little bit of a compromise. And I think that's where it's thrown me off a little bit.
Right.
Obviously, it made the top 50, so there's some really good things about this. And I too was drawn into this kind of muted purple and bronzy gold color. I like that. So for sure. So Aaron sees the unseen. Good job, Aaron. Beautiful job. Okay, next up is Adrian Sai, or C.
Ooh.
Adrian C. Sai. C. See?
Sigh.
All right.
I like this one.
Okay. I thought you told me to sigh. Okay, there we go. All right. Here we go. Super geometric. The bird has been reduced down to just almost its bare minimum, which is the span of the wings, and a little point for the tail, I think. Looks really good. And then there's this little drop. So I look at it like they removed the negative space in the wing on the top, scaled it down and dropped it at the bottom. It serves as a nice anchoring point, and it just suggests the moon or a relationship between the moon and the earth. So
That's
the
correct.
moon could be the thing at the bottom and the earth is the thing at the top. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I was reading the description. That's actually the rest of the world, the drop at the bottom.
Yep.
And then they are the moon,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But I love
Oh, I
this.
see. They're like watching the world.
Right. I love definitely the reduction, the simplification, because you could still read the wings, you can read the moon, and I don't know, this is so bold. So of our, metrics that we're judging this stuff by, I think uniqueness and boldness are the ones that definitely stand out for this particular mark.
Yeah. You see the little cuts in the wing?
Mm-hmm.
Those are not easy to do
Why not?
because it implies that there's a little bit more dimensionality. Because you've seen other ones where they just draw a flat line, Ricky,
Yeah.
and then it makes the whole thing look really flat.
Mm.
Where you can see that where the gaps are, where it moves away from the point and it opens up a little bit, it feels like the edge of the wing is tipping towards you, like it's furling inside. So it's dimensional. And I could totally see this as a three-dimensional sculpture where we look at it from the front, it looks like this, but when you look on the side, it's got a concave to it,
Gotcha.
right? Like it's bending towards you, like a skateboard has a curvature to it. Okay.
Right.
I'm not going to make an analogy.
And then
Yeah.
Yes.
Try to make it visual for you, Ricky.
I get you.
Joe Carmagnola says, as high as honor.
As high as honor.
Right, 'cause
That's their motto.
So I think that it hits that motto.
Yeah, it
nice.
does.
Captures that.
Okay, let's move on. This one's from Gian Cruz, or Guyan Cruz.
Probably Gian.
Gian?
Yeah.
Gian Cruz, okay. Here we go. And this is another super highly abstracted mark.
Ooh.
And it's got the wings, it's got the crescent moon, and there's no bird, but you get all that you need from this one graphic. And I love it. And there's two shades of the white. There's white, and then there's kind of a lighter purple or something like that. And it just shows, again, a little dimensionality. And it's super, super simple.
Yeah. I could see this. It passes the squint test. I can
Easily.
see this from far away. I love the reduction. Again, very simple. I actually like the curved edge. If you look at the top of where the wings end, there's a little bit of a curved edge to the top there. So that makes it feel more feather-like. So I think that was a nice little detail. Otherwise, if that wasn't there, I don't know if it would read as wings as well.
Okay, moving on. This is from This is not John Smith. That's just, they didn't change out the name at the bottom. This is
It's
not John
from,
Smith.
From Anonymous.
Javin, I can't even pronounce the names. Javouggne. Did they
Javongu?
put Javon? Maybe it's
Okay.
French. I don't know.
Or maybe African?
Is there a handle on the bottom or no?
This one
No.
literally says John Smith at John Smith.
Oh, okay, so
They didn't change any of that. Well, whatever. We're not going to focus on John Smith's work here. Obviously, this is not John Smith's work. This one has the falcon flying towards the, what is it? I forget what it's called.
Mountains?
The Vale?
The
The Vale. It's called
right.
the Vale. They preside in the Vale, and the castle is called the Erie.
Mhm.
And thanks for calling it the mountain, Aaron, because I didn't know that word in my vocabulary. Thank you very much. This one's a little strange for me because the crescent moon is at the bottom,
Right.
which looks a little odd because it's creating and trapping a little negative space at the bottom. It also looks like an odd smile. There's something funky as heck about it. So here are my suggestions for you. You could have easily placed the crescent moon at the top of the mountain range and then take your falcon, which is beautifully drawn, by the way, and scale it up so it breaks the circle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's flying over the circle, so it implies some dimension there too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need that little border. Again, you guys are adding things to it. I just don't know if you need it.
I mean, I like the contrast and the weight of elements, right? The middle is very heavy, and then you have this light, petite thing on the outside.
Yeah.
So I like the relationship of the two, but I don't know that it's necessarily needed.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on from John Smith's work. This is another one from Kento Yoshida.
Whoa.
Whoa, this is one prolific
came in
person.
strong.
Wow. Okay. Kento's like the men are not representing. I'll just do all the work. I'll just do them all. Okay. So Kento has proven to me once again, he I think, or she knows how to draw really well. And this is a really beautifully drawn falcon with the claws out and the tail and the way it's rendered and the crescent moon on top. When I think of sigils and in the classic sense, like jerseys, also for like Barcelona soccer team or football team, I kind of see this, and it's really nicely drawn. And I just have an appreciation for your illustration skills and the shape that this creates. Unlike with the dragon for House Targaryen, this one really feels like you could see it from afar, and you can also appreciate it from the details up close.
Right.
Thoughts, Matthew?
Yeah, no, I love the integration of the curve of the crescent moon on the top and how it leads into the wings of the bird. The bird does feel very prominent and proud. There's a nice posture to it, a nice stance within the shape of the sigil.
Wings out,
here.
claws out.
Yeah, like there's something very there's in it, you know, even with the claws out, it's kind of expanding out, so it feels like it's about to break from this containing shape. So I really like that quite a bit.
This also says, "Don't mess with me. I'll peck your eyes out and I'll claw off your face." Right? It's at a very, when we know in the animal kingdom, when the animal takes up a lot of space, it's showing you, don't mess with me.
Right.
Right? When it rears up on its legs, that's what it's saying. Back off, because I'll kill you.
And I even like the tail detail at the bottom, the way that the shape kind of completes.
Yeah, it looks like
there.
a saint, like
A fleur-de-lis.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's move on. This one is from Lauren Creates, at Lauren Creates. I didn't get the name because Lauren did not follow the template on this one. I just kind of just make this up at the bottom. So Lauren was able to make this one. This one also got into the top 50. It's got the falcon head. It's got an eye, like we're watching you from the top of the eyrie. And I don't know if there's a moon in there, but there's a...
I think the eye is the moon. That's the crescent moon.
Oh, okay. So it's an eye moon.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I think it's too many things.
Kind of.
Right away. Like, I love... The best thing about this is the use of the shape. This is one of the better ones where it's really taking this container and making it super dynamic. So you have this nice little swirl where it's leading you right into the center of this sigil, leading you right into the crescent moon. So I really love how this person used the space.
Yep.
But I feel like it is too many reads. Like, I just want to read two things at most, probably.
Yes. And I want to point out one other detail here is that I think Lauren knows how to do logo grading really well. Because if you look at the way the beak terminates and comes down towards the bottom part of the eye, that's a circle right there. And look at the eye of the falcon. It's also a circle. And you can see that she or he is probably doing a really good job of understanding, I got a sketch and I'm going to try and make it fit towards these geometric shapes to achieve that kind of timeless, bold quality. Okay. And this is also one of the ones where I'm going to dive a little deeper in, and I'm going to just draw a little bit on top of it to see what else we can do. There's some funny shapes in there too, I have to say. Like, you know, the throat of the bird, the falcon?
Right.
See how it's thick right there and then it tapers out? There's some funky stuff going on.
Right.
You see that, Matthew?
Yep.
Yep.
But
Okay.
I think for both of us, would you say this caught our eye?
It definitely caught our eye. But that's a moon.
Keep
Okay,
it light on a
Matthew's
Friday.
coming on
Keep it
with the yolks today. Okay.
Oh,
Oh, come on, Matthew.
Oh, wow.
I thought you were going to... Why don't you play the laughter
We
track?
got some fun.
That's the wrong track.
Some fun. Some fans here.
thank you,
Oh
everyone.
my gosh. You guys, back off. Back off, everybody. Just relax. We got a show to do here.
Moving on.
Okay, moving on. So let's move on to House Tyrell. Growing strong. Not a ton of submissions from House Tyrell. A very difficult one to work with because you're dealing with the rose and thorns. I think that's what they got. They're in High Garden, and it's pretty much what you know about House Tyrell.
Right.
They basically grow all the food for the kingdom. Is it the 7 kingdoms?
Yeah, and they're wealthy also.
They're very wealthy because they grow all the food.
That's right.
Okay. So here's the first one from Tom Whiting. If I'm reading that right, Tom Whiting. So simple shape here. Hey, Tom, we don't really need that little black outline on the crest itself. Just get rid of that. I don't know what that's for. Maybe you forgot, or I don't know. Anyways, I like this. It's very geometric. Again, I believe, just based on my own experience, it's very hard to draw these symbols that interlock and repeat kind of in this perfect infinite loop. So I have great admiration for your ability to do that. And then you have this outer ring, a circle kind of just the nest, the rose in, and then these little abstracted versions of thorns. Could look a little like barbed wire, which I like. I'm going to say something right now that's going to also be reflected in the second one. A rose is not exactly like a strong house, but that reflects their house, right?
That's hard.
But
yeah.
I thought, what's that?
It's like hard to make something that a sigil where it
Well-
seems like you're going to battle.
Yeah. They're not fighters, and in the storyline, they know they're not fighters. They're
Right.
farmers. They grow food, right? But I think you could have taken somehow this element from the outer two circles that you have, and maybe make them intertwined somehow, and make it look like two roses crisscrossing around with thorns. I think that would have been a really strong way to handle this, just to really get that kind of barbed wire where it was like, don't mess with us either. If you handle this incorrectly, we'll prick your fingers. You'll bleed. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. This is now. I can't read this.
Well, somebody broke the template here and wanted to change the background color.
Night design, right? Night design. The says silent. That's not knight. I don't want to say. All right. I don't know what it says. But anyways, another strong submission here for this house. And what do we got here? We got another rose in the center, and then we have a 5-spoked wheel. And at first I looked at this. I'm like, wait a minute. Is this for the? I'm forgetting all the houses right now. The
Tyrell?
No, not Tyrell. The ones Greyjoy, House Greyjoy, because there's this what looks to be like the steering wheel of a ship.
I saw it on the last one too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that kind of nautical vibe. That's why I wanted to make sure we steer away from that, and it could be a little bit more organic, right? But the inner
Nice.
rose is really beautifully drawn. It almost looks like the wool icon. Do you know what I'm talking about, Matthew? Yeah, but it's really nice. Again, these things are not easy to draw. A lot of respect for you.
Yeah, I think the thing that drew me in on this one was just that drawing of the rose. I love the kind of repeating pattern and that swirl that's bringing you right into the center of this piece. I like that it feels a little bit tight. It's kind of bringing you in there. But I agree with you. The outer shape, I don't think necessarily helps that, and it doesn't help clarify the illustration or the sigil anymore.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. Are there any questions? You guys want us to keep doing this? Do you want me to go a little faster, a little slower? How we doing?
We're out of 50, right? 22 out of 50 right now, it looks like?
No, we're not showing all of them.
Okay.
It's a little bit too much. We're going to
Yeah.
show you the ones that we picked from the 50.
Correct.
Otherwise, it'd be a 3-day
That's-
live stream.
I think if it's not 50, then I think we're okay. Some people, we were at 246 last I checked.
Hey, Ricky, can you
254.
speak
Yeah.
into the microphone?
We're at 254 right now, Chris.
Okay,
So people
great.
are still interested.
Great.
People, what are they saying?
It's growing.
Everybody's just having their comments on each mark. So
Okay, fantastic.
let's keep going.
Keep going.
Yep.
All right. Next up is House Lannister. Their motto is "Hear me roar." Hear me roar. Okay. House Lannister. Boom. Oop, there's a little line in there. Okay. This is from Jack. From Jack. My eyes are going here.
Jack
From Jack.
Palette.
Palette?
Yeah.
Jack Palette. Thank you, Eagle Eye.
You got it.
You get full screen, I get half screen.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a front-facing line with the mane, and there's something really interesting in terms of this sharp serrated shape that's reflected kind of like the shape of the sigil. How many S sounds can I say? Sharp serrated shape of the sigil
By the seashore.
by the seashore.
Santa Monica.
Yes. Okay. And I think that there's something really cool about that. The lion's face reads really well, and there's this edge to the lion, and also there's a crown on the lion. What I like is I actually like the top part of the lion
Yes.
much better than the bottom part of the lion.
Yeah.
Even though I like the shape, it's just there's some really cool design element going on there.
Yeah, I was gonna say the top part is nice because you see that subtle crown there at the top, right? The way that it's also getting supported by the lion's mane at the top almost feels like this regal haircut, right? Like nice flowing hair. And then at the bottom, it's just the bottom part of the lion's mane just feels like it's too chunky and
Yep.
it's competing with the face. So if we were to rebalance this, I would say that it would be nicer if the face was a little bit bigger and more prominent, and then we reduce the thickness or the prominence of the bottom part of the lion's mane, just so that we get a little bit more of a better read on this.
Yeah, so a couple things. We should definitely just take what you've drawn and scale it up to feel more of the frame, because that's what we're focused on. And then what I would suggest is the way that you handle the top part of the lion's mane, you continue throughout and see what happens. Because I think that detail will allow the head of the lion to pop out more. Okay, good job there, Jack Palette. Okay, next one up is from Stephen Manuel. Okay, and this is really interesting. It's got a kind of reductive, almost kind of a scratchboard vibe, right? Well, like Frank, what is that? German. I'm just forgetting. wood block. You guys know what I'm talking about.
I don't know.
Who
what
studied
you-
art history? Come on, you guys.
My art history is a little
I have
foggy.
Google.
German
open.
abstract expressionism, whatever. I'm just
Right.
going to throw it out there. Somebody will ding me for it, I'm sure of it. But it's a really nice mark, and I just like that it's just using negative shape, and there's a strong sense of lighting. We get the sense that it's lit from the top of the lion's head.
Right.
And all I was thinking was, I know that it fits within the main where proportionately, but I just feel like it's a little too far south. I want to nudge it up. Everybody's agreeing?
Yes.
Yeah.
It feels like the Lion King to me.
Okay.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Lion King. Well, if you want to see Lion King, I'll show you Lion King right now. Boom. From the Broadway play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember, according to Sagi Haviv, we're not allowed to say it looks like or reminds me of.
Right.
Okay.
That's one of his opening
Yeah.
slides. Because of course it's gonna look like something.
And I probably have already said it myself too, but
Okay. I
we'll
gotcha.
just try to refrain from this.
I have not.
Okay. Yo, Matthew's carrying a perfect message.
Throwing it out there.
Letting you guys know.
am perfect.
Matthew, you wound me, sir. I bleed. You know what?
Why did we give Matthew the soundboard?
You let Matthew have the soundboard one time.
That's my job today.
Just
Trying to
one
make it a little bit more
time,
interesting.
and he goes bananas on it. He's giving himself all the kudos
You
and
give him
applause.
an inch, he
And
takes a
swords.
mile.
Yes. Never give Matthew an inch. It's out of control, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, next up. Oh, wow, this is great. This is from Mustafa Ben Omran. Like, how perfect is that
Wow.
name for this? Mustafa.
That's pretty dope.
From The Lion King. Isn't
Yeah.
that his name?
Indeed.
Mustafa?
Mufasa.
Mufasa.
Oh, close. Yeah.
Really close.
Yeah.
Mufasa. Good memory there, Ricardo.
It's a great movie.
This one's very different compared to all the previous ones that we
Yes.
saw. They really utilize all the space
Yes.
inside the crest shape that you provided. It's very abstract, yet I think you could still see that it looks like a mean line right at the
You
middle.
can see it.
Right?
Yeah, it's very abstract and it's really beautiful. I could see this as a tapestry or a chest plate or a piece on somebody's armor. I can see that. I love the lines all coming converging towards the center of the face. The perspective lines are really, really nice in this. Okay? Somebody might argue, it's like, could it look a little bit more like a line? Maybe.
Yeah.
Just a hair. Maybe adjust one of those lines a little bit and the line will pop out. But really well done, Mustafa. And also excellent name, excellent choice. All around. Good job. Last but not least, another one from Kento Yoshida. Oh
Dang.
my gosh, I'm telling you guys, he is tearing it apart. He's doing the work of 30 designers right now. Or she. I don't even know Kento. Is Kento?
I think
Yeah.
Kento's a guy name, but you could let us
Who
know,
knows?
Kento, if you're
Yeah.
on the stream right now.
Yes, apologies in advance. Anyways, Kento's doing the work of 30 designers. Fantastic. Okay, like I said, Kento knows how to draw. So here's another rendering of a lion. And its mane looks a lot like flames, and I think that's pretty cool, right? So like this is a lion with hair gel. Really strong product there. So I see that and I think that's really cool. The one thing that's bothered me about this drawing, Kento, is the bottom part of the lion's jaw. It looks like, if you look at it, you flip this thing upside down, it looks like a skull with its mouth open with sharp teeth. You guys see that? Like Day of the Dead skull?
Now
Yeah.
that you say it, I see
Now that I say it, you cannot unsee it. It's one of those things,
Oh,
right?
man.
Yes.
It's like the beautiful maiden and then the
old
wretched
woman.
winch. Yeah. When you flip that upside down.
Yes, and maybe that was the intent there. There's two sides to this, right?
Ah.
Who knows? Now, I would say that something is funny about the ear, the jaw, the bottom of the mouth. It's somewhere between baboon, dragon, lion. I think we just need to work on that a little bit so it's really clear what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but a baboon kind of has a similar face. It could also be easily, if you added a long neck to this, it could easily transform into a dragon. So we just got to work on that. And then you have this breath or flame vapor coming from it. And I think I know why you did that, because you want to fill up some of the negative shape. And because, you know, Matthew doesn't like symmetry, you threw that in there.
Just
and
for me.
it's also echoing the same shapes in the lion's mane itself. So there's those kinds of, what is that called? Flame wicks of fire or whatever it is.
Right.
And then you echo that. But since for me, it's confusing already whether or not it's a lion or a dragon, and then you add that flame breath on top, it's just not helping you right now.
Right. And, you know, one thing I want to point out is all the other submissions had the lion facing forward, and I'm just thinking of my own memory. I don't normally see lions represented from the side, from a profile very much. and just in like a lot of historical stuff that I've seen. So it's interesting. So maybe that's another reason why it's hard to read.
Actually, in sigils, the lion is most of the time looking to the left or right.
Oh,
Because
that's
if you think
right.
about the griffin,
Right, it
the
has
griffin
the
has a
claws.
lion's head.
Yeah.
So speaking of that now, you could probably have one of the lion's claws out front with his arm,
Right.
in lieu of the fire breath.
Right.
I think that would look really cool because it's very strong. It's like, stand back because I'm going to claw you and I'm going to destroy you.
Right.
So maybe there's an element in there that you can throw in. I think that would look good. So then you would have to scoot the lion over to the right to create room for the claw, and then you can put it in there. And I think that would be great. So those are my little pieces of advice or critique for you, Kento. I'm pretty sure by the time this episode airs, you already have fixed it because you're that good and that fast.
Joe Carmengola in the chat says Super Saiyan Lannisters.
What? Say it again.
Super Saiyan Lannisters.
What is saying?
From Dragon Ball Z.
From Dragon
It has
Ball
a
Z.
Dragon Ball Z
Oh.
vibe.
When they go Super Saiyan, they get the golden hair, and that's the shape. Actually,
Oh, I get it now. You guys, we're mixing all kinds of references now. We're doing anime, manga, and mixing it with Game of Thrones. Somebody is happy right now.
Somebody is.
Kento is a new designer from what I'm looking at. So he's a graphic designer in Japan, I believe. I
Do
just
we
looked
have
him
your
up.
screens? Or
No.
It's just us. Okay. Because I can't cut away from my deck right now.
Right.
Okay. Because I'd like to look at that, Kento. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job. There's a future for you in the future.
Ooh. But
I get no sword effect. I got no. No, it's all right. It's all right. Okay, Matthew only listens in for his bits of wisdom and wit. Christelle got Jack. Okay, next up,
A little
House-
cold in here.
A little cold.
cold.
Perfect, because it's time to talk about House Stark.
Oh.
Winter is coming. Okay,
Hopefully not.
House Stark, one of my faves. Okay, here we go. The wolf also had the dire wolf, I should say. The dire wolf, not just a regular wolf, had many submissions too, but it got culled down to just a handful. So here's submission number 1. It's the howling dire wolf.
From who?
Reared up
From who?
legs from Kento Yoshida.
Oh, again.
Once again.
From none other.
It's a monster. It's a monster.
What the heck?
But maybe if we look closely, he just cut the wolf's head and put it on the lion and added hair. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure he did not do that. So Kento's kind of run the whole gamut.
A little
Different
bit.
styles and
Gosh, dang.
different ways of rendering.
He really took
This
off
is
with
how
this
you show
challenge. Yeah.
This is how you show up.
This is how you flex, you guys.
yeah.
This is a massive flex on us right now.
So you guys didn't know these were all from Kento beforehand?
No.
You just
Because we
picked
can't
them?
read. You know, when we were judging these, we'll give
We
a
don't
little
read the
context.
names.
We don't read the names. We were just looking on Short Stack, and we were looking at thumbnails super tiny. So it's probably about 25% of the shape. So we were looking from afar to see what's going to catch our eye first. If it was worth clicking on, then we click in. But even when we click in, my eyes are squinting right now, and I can't even see the name at all. So we're just basing it completely off of merit,
As it should be.
as it should be. Right.
We should be able to decide from afar, from a thumbnail size, is it a good mark or is it not? Can we read it? Does it convey the house virtues? Is it the proper animal? All those kinds of things. We're making those decisions. And you guys need to know that, because sometimes we can zoom into our own drawings super tight and think, oh, this is genius. And then you zoom out and you're like, oh my gosh, all the negative spaces are filling in because at this scale, none of it reads, and it's important to be able to do that.
Right.
I did notice, in case, Arryn, you were wondering, Kento did have a lot of submissions, but in terms of us selecting, we don't look at that at all.
Right.
All right. So gasp all you want. Let's get back into the critique. It's using the shape really well, I think, because it's taking up this kind of diagonal prominence with the legs in the back and the arms up front, the front legs, right? And the tail out there. I think it's really cool. I think the negative shapes in here aren't great. They feel a little
Yeah.
fussy and detailed,
Yeah.
right? So I would like to have you possibly work on that. Matthew, did you read something funny in the chats?
Yeah, I'm giggling here just because a lot of people are saying Kento is hired. Tevin Morris says Kento is like a warg here. He's controlling you and me.
He's a warg.
He's
Oh,
controlling
he's a warg.
A warg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know.
Okay, he's a warg.
He's controlling you and me. Give him a job. Hashtag hire Kento. Oh my
He only has 19 followers on Instagram.
Well,
I
let's
think-
change that,
yeah,
you guys,
let's-
right now. So, you guys, check out Kento's work on Instagrizzle. It's at KY_logo.
Yep.
Show him some love.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of these sigils that he did for the show on his Instagram.
That's
so
probably all of them. I
Yeah.
mean, because how many things did he enter?
I don't know, but I see 368.
Eight of his 19 posts.
This is a major moment for Kento.
Yeah.
It really inspired him, it looks like.
Yeah.
It's a big...
Yeah, I think so. I think so. This is really great. Okay, let's move on. Okay, this is the last one from House Stark. This is from Newton. Newton. Okay. At first you look at this like winter is coming. Yeah, it looks like a snowflake.
Mm-hmm.
But wait, there's more.
Oh.
If you look at it carefully, it's the face of a direwolf.
Yeah, that's pretty clever.
But I have to work really hard at that, I think.
Do you? That's what my son would say. Do you?
I don't know.
Do you, Ricky?
No, I think it's actually a good balance between the two. I saw it right away. I like the snowflake. I like the snow, and then the dire wolf in there. I really like how the nostril is treated, the nose of the dire wolf here coming down. So it seems like a very tricky puzzle to figure out and solve. So for that reason, you know, I'm intrigued by that as a designer, just looking at this like, wow, how did this person solve this puzzle? So it's two things that they smashed together very well, I think.
Yeah, so from a couple 100 feet away on the battlefield, you're like, winter's coming. Here it is. The snowflake's coming at me. And then when you're about to die and somebody's going to smash that shield into your face, you're like, it's a dire. You see what I'm saying, Ricky? That's what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, what? Oh, I just realized moments before I die, it's a wolf. So I'm going to nitpick a little bit here. The eyes of the wolf is probably really where, if you just refine that a little bit, will let people know that's a wolf. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like it could be scooted down a skosh because the shape above the eye is really tiny, the gray shape, and you have to be mindful of those things. I don't think it's going to hurt legibility at all if you just scooted them down so that there's a little bit more gray above it, negative space. And that's it. Otherwise, well done.
And this one is not by Kento, just letting you guys know.
You can tell.
This is by Newton.
It's Newton.
Newton.
All right. House Martell, unbowed, unbent, unbroken. Love this house. Okay. House Martell, we only have one submission that made the final selection here. And this is from, Ricky?
Pedro de Silva Pita.
Pedro de Silva Pita.
Excellent.
All right. Pedro de Silva Pita. Okay. And what is their house? Is it like a sun with a spear?
That's what I'm seeing.
I think you have it on the slide before, no?
Let's see. Dorne was the only something. Lannister's coat of arms. The coat of arms is a gold spear piercing a red sun on a golden background. And
That's
it's modeled. Cool. Okay. So a gold spear piercing a red sun.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of looks like a gold spear piercing a red sun. I think there's some really cool parts to this, some really interesting fragmented shapes that are jutting out from the center, and some squiggly things coming out too to show the sun rays, and I think that's really good. I guess my problem here is I think it's just missing that little, I don't know, je ne sais quoi, something to make it really special, Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
And also a little kind of nitpicky thing here. I'm not sure, because I don't want to lose my eyesight just putting my face up to the screen, but I think it's important to end the triangular shapes that are jutting out with a curved edge. And I think it's a straight edge, whereas the outer sun rays are on a curved edge, I think. I can't tell.
I think you're right.
I can't tell.
So we're just talking at the base of the rays, right? Like all of those rays, they're all flat versus the circular shape that they're butted up next to. So it's creating just some weird tension there that's not resolved yet. And I think those are small details that will definitely add up in the compound effect of how we reveal this and how we look at this. And I think another thing in terms of the negative space of how things are close to each other, I don't particularly like how all the points are close to the edge of the crest. I feel like it's also creating some unusual tension there, like the point of the spear at the very bottom. I know why you did it, but for some reason it's not creating a pleasant tension for me. It's just a little awkward for me.
I know what it is. I think you're saying Pedro is trapped in no man's land, or no person's land, where if you're going to get that close, just break the edge or stay away from it.
Correct.
And it's just really in an uncomfortable, like, are you going to do it or not?
Right.
Stab it or don't, right? A couple other little tips here. Like I said before, it's very hard to make things look dimensional when they're very flat and graphic. However, with the illusion of shadow, you can actually give things a dimensional quality. So for example, the sun, if it's the source of light, then things radiating away from the sun, it would cast a little bit of shadow. So at the bottom of the spear, underneath the circular shape right at the head of the spear, if he curved that line downwards instead of upwards, it would feel as if that ball casted a shape or a shadow onto the spear itself.
Right.
And if you curve the shadows or the shape of the spear, it'll make it look like a rod instead of a two-dimensional piece of paper. So those little things will actually add quite a little bit in terms of the illusion. Same thing when the spear penetrates through the sun from the top down, it's cutting in a very flat way. If you round off the bottom of that, you'll feel like the sun has dimension and the spear has dimension. I hope you guys understood that.
Yeah, it's hard without the illustration on top, but it has a lot of potential.
What do you mean? Like if I can't draw on top of this?
Yeah, if you were to draw on top, then it would help. But
okay, I know a young man who probably can help me. Young man. Why when I say young man who can help me, Ricky leans back in the chair and is like, he's not talking to me. Ricky, can you load this one up for me?
I can do it from my computer. I'll send it over there.
To here?
Yeah, I'll send it.
Okay, I don't know how to do any of that technology stuff. So
I'll hop in and do that.
No, a different young man's going to help me, Ricky. You've missed your opportunity to be called young man. Okay, House Tully, family, duty, and honor. Not a ton of submissions, only a couple, but it's really tricky to do a fish. What kind of fish is this? It's a trout with red stripes and blue. Okay, and its model's family, duty, and honor. Okay, this one comes from Jess
I like this.
Brown. This is a really interesting and abstract representation of a fish and waves, and in a way that just really caught my eye.
It caught my eye too.
I like this.
This was one that stood out, and a lot of the submissions weren't this very vivid in terms of the color.
Brown.
Yes.
So it's like bold contrast. It's very minimal. Like it's not trying to take up all the space, but just the balance of negative and positive space here drew my eye. So the power of negative space can be very useful, where I know a lot of the feedback I've been giving earlier is like how to maximize and utilize the space. This is the opposite, where they're using something that's a little bit more petite and small, yet it draws your eye in just as well.
Yes, I have some technical issues, but let me just talk about all that's good. Super simple, super graphic. I feel like it's powerful, and it feels like the trout is about to breach the water with its fin up on the top. Is that a dorsal fin on the top?
Sure, we'll say that.
I wish I had people who went to college. Okay.
I didn't take marine biology. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Just to name a fish part, you have to be a marine biologist. Ricky.
I mean,
that's a little extreme there. Jeez,
I went to
Louise.
college. I'm sorry.
Are you sure? We need to check here. We need a call.
Hey, man.
Okay, anyways, the little nitpicky bits here is the house colors are red, white, and blue, so I would have liked to have seen a little bit of the red in there. Not a lot, but just a little bit. The other part is you see the space between the two waves. At the ends, they seem thicker visually than in the middle. And I think for me, it would just been much nicer if it was equidistant, all the way through. Okay? So that's that. Let me move on to House Bolton. House Bolton, our blades are sharp, and their symbol is the flayed man. Basically, for whatever reason, they have some obsession with skinning people alive and hanging them up on an X. This is not one of the great houses, but it's okay. We're flexible like that. So here we go. This is what the flayed man. This is from Marcus Mello.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's
so there's
painful,
something.
Dude.
Oh yeah. Have you seen the show, Ricky?
Yeah.
Okay. So the flayed man.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple things about this. First of all, I really appreciate the illustration, and for whatever reason, the line work and the repeating patterns, and they're somewhat equidistant, has a very calming, cool effect, and it feels also like the veins and the lines of the body once the skin has been peeled off. So for that, I quite like this. I also like that the arms have been chopped off, and there's blood dripping from the neck and the arms, and there's a little bit of a skull pattern in the center of the chest and the six pack.
Yeah.
So this is a very fit dead person.
Everybody on the show is pretty fit.
Looks like me.
But I guess if you peeled off my skin, would you also peel off the fat layer?
Yeah,
you
probably.
would, right? So I'd probably look like this if I was flayed too.
Some good drafts
So
on 'em.
there is some benefit to being flayed alive. You just look really good. All right. So that's the mark. Using a couple of colors here. We didn't want to spend too much time on this, but this was a very unique thing. I think, again, we probably need to scooch this up a little bit north. And I understand why you don't want to draw the rest of the body, but part of the flayed man is that X symbol because they're hung on those crosses,
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Matthew. Okay, so let's move on then. Yeah? White Walkers. Woo! White Walkers not even a great house, but somebody decided to do the White Walkers. They have no motto. They have no symbol because they're just a band of dead zombies.
Right.
They're the band of the undead. And they would never make a symbol because you see them You don't need to know who the enemy is. It's pretty clear because they're all like rotting flesh
Right.
and skull face.
Yeah, this wasn't one of the ones that we had listed, but I think they broke the rule here, but that's okay because of the mark actually
Totally okay.
turned out
Wow.
pretty decent.
Yeah, so this is from Math Palma.
Yep.
Did we say math or moth? Or math?
Math.
Little lisp in there. Math?
Nope.
Math Palma. Maybe it's short for Matthew. Math Palma. Good job on this. We see the eye. We see that blue eye and the small iris, and it's just kind of in an almond shape. It's pretty cool. And then we see these lines around their faces, which is also kind of part of the design of the whites, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like the, I think they are like frozen muscle fibers or something on their faces, so that's why it kind of has these ridges along the eyes. So it's very intense looking. I mean, I know they're the main bad guys in the show, and when you look at this, it definitely conveys that they feel a little treacherous. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I think whenever an eye is looking at you this directly, it does make you uncomfortable.
What makes me feel uncomfortable is there's just one eye.
Right.
Because it's like the eye of Sauron.
Yeah.
And there's something that's throwing me off. And I don't know if you want to illustrate the whole face, but I think having two eyes or something else in there would have been really cool. I think as a standalone element, it's really beautiful. It's well drawn. I like it. I would also probably wear this on a t-shirt. So good job on that. It's just in terms of like a mark for the house, maybe I'm just quibbling about little details here. Okay, before we reveal to you our pick for the top 5, I want to remind you guys the criteria in which we use. We picked it based on, is it legible? Is it unique? Is it appropriate to the house? And is it bold? Can we see it from far away? And I'm not going to tell you who won. I'm going to go to my screen now and work on some things. Let's see how this goes. So I plan on doing some draw overs on my iPad. And then I'm also going to jump into Illustrator and see if I can't, in somewhat real time, show you guys a couple of things in Illustrator, okay? And this is probably a good time for us to maybe read some questions or prompt the audience to say or do something funny, maybe?
Does anybody have any good questions to ask the audience
Or dumb questions? You don't have to have good questions.
Yeah. Do we have a prompt for them at all?
No,
Well, that's what I asked you guys while I prepare.
Okay.
Yeah, so Chris will go there. Let's see, I'm just
Oh,
reading.
I'm going there. Matthew, how do I do the eye picker to grab this color?
You know, I'm
Are you
What are
not
people
a
saying?
Procreate
is this
guy?
a good one?
No, I don't use
Is there some good comments there?
I mean, everybody's just
Shit.
Really
commenting.
nailed it. Just read some of them off, dude.
Okay. Darren by Design said, I like this one. Kento for the win. A lot of people want us to hire Kento, so I think you guys should probably hop on that pretty soon.
I'm doing it. It's done. As soon as I get off the air.
Yep.
And then he's going to
And
drop some value-based pricing on you right
there
after.
you go.
Chris, how much is this worth to you?
Kento jumped up to 43 followers. So
Nice.
as soon as we
Nice.
drop
Nice.
that,
Good job.
we
Good
bumped
job,
him up
team.
a little bit.
Well done.
Yeah, I think that's just about it. I want to ask the audience who's their favorite. They can rewind and go back and let us know. We have it numbered here. So if you guys go back and let us know which one was your favorite and see if that matches up with Chris and or Matthew's top 5. So I think that's the prompt.
Yeah.
What was everybody's favorite one of the ones we showed so far?
For sure. Yeah, and there were, I want to say thank you everyone for submitting.
Yeah,
there was
that
tons of great entries. Thank you for
Huge,
that. Right?
huge.
We'll do a little applause.
Everybody worked really hard, so I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
there was some really great entries across the board. Obviously, we didn't go over 50 today. Otherwise, this would be a 3-hour, 5-hour live stream, and I think we would all get a little hangry over there, which I know it's our lunchtime
know
right
me.
now. So we're trying to
You know me.
expedite
You don't want to see that.
this last
So
part
hang in there,
here.
guys.
Yeah.
And I have good news for everybody. If you watched yesterday's live stream with Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. Yeah, thank you, Aaron. I always wait for Aaron.
He
to catch up
almost
to me.
didn't.
He's like, what is he doing? Okay, so if you guys watched that and you wanted to hear more specific advice and ideas around creativity and design, here's the good news. I tweeted Gary this morning. I said, I regret not asking you more design-related questions, something that Matthew said, yeah, we should have gotten into that earlier. Well, he's agreed to come back on the show, you guys, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah!
Gary V,
He's coming back
he's
on
a
the
good
show.
guy. He's a good guy, man.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Yeah, okay. So let's jump into my iPad now, guys. Let's see what happens here. There we are. And we're here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to create those shadow shapes that we were talking about. So let me, somebody messed around with my brushes, I think. Opacity, bleed.
So Chris is on his iPad in Procreate.
Yep. I don't want. Is that a technical pen I want? Keep going, Matthew. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I know Chris doesn't use Procreate a whole lot. He uses it for little drawovers and sometimes when he's sketching his ideas. But I know his tool of choice for something like this is probably Photoshop, just because he knows where all the tools are. So if you see him fumbling around, it's just because he doesn't use it this in depth often.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
everybody
what I'm
be
doing,
nice, man.
I'm painting in here this spear that we talked about, right? So
Yeah.
I can zoom in, I believe, to help you guys out there a little bit.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to create that illusion. So when I talked about the cash out underneath the ball here, if I round off the corners, I try to create a little dimension with that. You see what I'm saying there? It's not a huge thing. I probably need to paint back some of this.
Mm-hmm.
Where would I paint it, Matthew?
Are you talking about the top of the spear?
Yeah, as the spear penetrates this, and
Right.
I think I created a layer here, so I can turn it on and off so you guys can see. Before,
Right.
it's got this super sharp flat edge right there. You guys
Mhm.
can see that?
At the
And then
top.
when I turn it back on, I'm just rounding it off a little bit
Mhm.
so that you can see that it's dimensional. And you can
Yeah.
do that on both ends, okay? So go ahead, Matthew. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, that's very interesting. Just by curving the shadow there, the implied lighting, then you all of a sudden get this round sense of depth, right? That it's a cylinder there, and so that definitely helps a lot. And I think throughout this, when we were looking at a lot of the flat graphic submissions,
Mm-hmm.
definitely a lot of them could have benefited for some of this implied lighting or graphic lighting.
Yeah, and I'm seeing now, I feel like all the bottom edges of these shapes now are just flat lines, Matthew, and rotated around.
Right.
And that's where I think you need to just cut those so that they're circular, so they follow that shape. Another thing I want to point out here, I'm going to switch ink colors here, is that we have this dimension, we have this dimension, we have this. We have a lot of very similar things, and we have to just be very careful about how those elements are repeating and how they build a cohesive whole. And then we have this dimension here, which is also kind of odd. So again, maybe we just need to vary things a little bit less. So I'm going to try and pick this color. I'm not an expert user of this stuff, guys, okay? And then I want to bring this back down a little bit there so that you're not adding another shape in there. It's just too many shapes, okay? And we have to be mindful of the thickness of the spear compared to the rays. So I think maybe making it a little bit thicker would have helped, whatever. I'm just trying to destroy the design right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, we have to be mindful of dimensions. That's all, not to create too many different things.
Right. So Chris is trying to rebalance that. While he's doing that, I want to answer a couple of questions on the stream. Let's see.
Are we going to be choosing from your top 5 from the ones we were shown today?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
so that was a question.
So that was one question, and these are all from the top 50. There was another question in here. Let's see. This is from TQ Design Services. Are there any good Illustrator resources online for a newbie? And if you look in the description of our show today, there's something there with a link, and it says bboyle.me/thefuture. This is our buddy, Dan Scott. He's a really good instructor when it comes to fundamentals of the tool. So if you want to learn Photoshop, if you want to learn Illustrator, if you use our link there, you could check out his courses. They're relatively inexpensive, and he's really good, fun, and engaging. And
Yeah, he
actually,
is.
you're going to see him on a future episode here on the Academy, probably next week or the following week. So you can get a taste of what he does, his teaching style, but I highly recommend him. He's a really nice guy, and he knows his tools. I was watching a tutorial that he was making for us, and I learned so many things that I didn't know about Illustrator. So that just goes to show how good he is and how up-to-date he stays with the tool. So check that out in the description. I'm going to just drop that link.
It's in the chat. It's already in the chat.
Oh, it's in the chat.
Good job.
Fantastic.
Good job. So I'm playing around here with adding a little bit of detail so that we have some variation so it doesn't feel as flat as it was. I don't know if I'm making it better, but a lot of times people watch the show and they're like, oh, he's what is he doing? This is a joke. Oh, and what I'm doing is I'm just trying to show you different ways of working through a problem. I'm not telling you that in minutes that I can solve and make everything better. That's not how design works, and we all know that.
Right.
So I think people that are true fans of the show understand this as a concept, and I'm trying to create illusion, right? I'm just creating a little bit of more dimension.
It looks like it's hotter. Like the sun is hotter when you add these little flourishes to me.
So you're saying I make things hotter?
No. I'm saying the sun looks warmer.
No, you literally said that, Ricky.
I know.
No, I like these, and I know even though you're just drawing it with the Apple Pencil here, these little imperfections actually give it a lot of character.
Yeah.
I like it that things are not ending perfectly flat or perfectly straight. These things actually add a bit of character, so that's also another thing to consider as you guys design these things.
Yeah, so I'm not going to add too much to it, right? Because I don't want to make it too complicated. You could easily also go in and add a little tip here if you wanted to kind of extend that idea. But I think now I'm getting too fussy with it.
Right.
And I just think having some of those shapes in there is all I wanted to do. And if I knew how to use this better, I would have scaled the shape down so that Matthew's a little happier with it not coming all the way to the edge, right? But I'm just not that talented with Procreate.
Yeah, and what Chris is doing here too, you could repeat that same thing on the tip of the spear to give that a little bit more dimension too. Like those are little things that we can extend out, but I'm starting to get hangry, so let's move on to the next one.
Yes. So Matthew is using me as the scapegoat for being hungry.
That's right.
But it's really Matthew who's really super hungry. And look, I learned how to pick colors, Matthew. Look at that. So I can
fancy.
do white, whatever. And I can make the brush a little bit bigger. So here's the thing. I'm going to switch over to my desktop now, but before Arryn cuts to it, let me just change some of my settings, okay? Matthew, you can fill in for me for a little bit.
So just to recap this, can you pull that back up on screen? The reason why Chris brought this one up is that both of us thought that this had a lot of potential. We like how this particular designer used up the space here. We had some issues with that eye and the crescent moon and just the overall delivery of what was in the shape here, but we thought it had so much potential because of how unusual and how beautiful all of these curved lines are kind of coming together. So we thought the technique and the approach was really good, but the execution could use a little bit of work. So I think Chris was going to bring this in and do a little bit of tweaking to it to see if we could improve the legibility.
So the first thing that I notice is we don't need all this extra stuff on this, right? And that the shape of the head feels a little bit like an eagle for me for some reason. I wasn't sure. So let's go ahead and jump to my desktop right now. Hopefully I'm not revealing anything weird on my machine. But I just typed in falcon head. And what I noticed is that it's got a pretty pronounced upper beak that hooks down in some more so than others. Like this one, it says it's a falcon head, majestic HD stock. Look how far that drops down and the way it's shaped, right? It almost looks like the bottom part of a J, the bowl of the J, or the arm or the leg of a J. And then you look back at the mark that you created here, it's not like that at all. And I think it's important. I'm not saying I'm a naturalist and I know birds and things and I can spot them from afar, but we want to make sure that's true to that. Notice also the eye of the bird. The eye of the bird is really big relative to the scale of the head. Any day now, Arryn will cut to this and we'll see it. So look at this bird's eye. Look how big that sucker is, right? So it's missing certain qualities. And if you're going to draw a profile of a bird, let's not just try to do any bird. So there's some things in there. So what I'm going to attempt to do, I should say. Now, going back to the iPad here, see if I can do this. I want to erase some of this stuff, okay? So I'm just going to start painting over it because I want to get rid of all that junk. And I hopefully have been smart about creating a layer. Yes, I have. Boom. I probably should have just duplicated the layer.
Ooh, this is already much nicer. I think
Not good, Matthew. I just erased and things are good.
But
Okay.
it's what's cool about this. Once you did that reduction, now I could see the bird, and it almost feels like the wing extending out on the bottom part of it. It feels like the bird's shoulder and the wing. So now all of a sudden it becomes super legible as to what it is. So I think that moon was the thing that was reading like an eye that was really throwing me off.
Right.
But now
So-
just simplifying definitely helped.
Yeah, so the position of the eye is a little bit off relative to my reference here, right? So there's a couple other things that we're going to do. If Matthew liked me getting rid of stuff, I'm going to get rid of more stuff. Let's see what happens here. So before, I'm going to mark this up. No, I'm going to just say like the bottom part of the throat here, I'm going to erase this just for a little bit and see what happens. I think could have transitioned a little bit differently. Come on. Transition down here so that we don't have a funny throat.
Right.
So I'm going to do that. I'm doing my best to try and keep this a monostroke thing and not add thicks and thins because that'll change the complexion. So there's that part. I think what I want to do is change the beak so it comes out and it hooks down and it comes back over a little bit more. And then I think I want to move this eye over here and make it a little bit bigger like that. Okay, so let me see what happens when I do that.
Cool. And I just want to call out, I think Lorcan is in the stream right now. Thank you so much for submitting this and sending us your files. We ended up not using the Illustrator file that you sent, but we're just drawing over the submission anyway.
I think it would be just more instructive if I just do it fast like this, right?
Yeah. Fast and sloppy. We're not trying to spend 2 hours here.
That's my motto in
Just
life.
get an idea
Fast
of what
and
you
sloppy, guys.
Oh, okay. Well, Chris gets...
I didn't even, that's so inappropriate, that sound effect. I don't even know what that means, Matthew. I have no idea.
Matthew likes it.
Okay, Matthew is no longer allowed to have the controls of the iPad for
It's
the sound.
the pity trumpet. That's what the sound effect is called. I'm just kidding. But
Okay, so I'm going to just keep drawing here. And I think I want to just bring it down and then bring it back up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it has a jaw in here somewhere. So I want to bring it back up and then bring it over a little bit. Maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that falcon's looking pretty mean.
Trying to give it a little edge.
You know what's cool about this is as you're making these adjustments, now it feels like the head is protruding forward, like it's coming forward in space.
Yeah?
So I really like that part. So this thing where previously you had a swirl and it was kind of bringing you to the center of the frame, now it feels like this nice offset thing where the head is moving forward and the wings are moving back. So it has this nice depth to it. I think this is a much better use of the space in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's just a little bit sloppy, but if you guys can see this, like it's starting to have a really nice effect for me.
Now I'm going to say that this is kind of like where I want to leave this. Let me make another layer here before we spend too much time on this. There's a couple other ideas I would try if I were really trying to make this great, right? So I could try to bring this wing down and bring another wing up here so that it's starting to show a shape of the wing, but I don't know if I have those kind of skills right now, right? So let me just try and do it really bold and fast here.
And the other part of House Arryn...
Maybe, I don't know.
Right.
So that there's detail and contrast, right? So we have one side of it, Matthew, which is really bold and simple, and the other side has some detail so that the head separates from the wing.
Right, so that would go back. Yeah, and one thing that I wanted to call out, if we had more time on this is House Arryn, and the other part of it is the crescent moon. We could play, instead of that weird eye right below the beak...
Oh, I got a solution for that, but keep going.
Yeah, I was going to say the crescent moon could be the eye of the bird. So that there is still those two reeds that are there, but that could be one way where you fold that in.
I'm going to just give it a little crescent moon highlight.
Right.
Maybe.
Oh, little hidden one.
That's terrible.
Right,
That's
it's terrible.
Sorry. It made a cool, mean bird, like too friendly.
Right.
Bad idea.
It looks
Bad
like
Chris.
he's smiling
Bad
a
Chris.
little bit.
Yeah. So that's it. I don't mean to make a logo for the U.S. Olympic team, but with the red and blue. But that's kind of what I was thinking there. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will mark up one more, and then we'll probably just jump in Illustrator. Hopefully, depending on Matthew's appetite.
Ooh.
We'll see. So I'm going to mark on top of this. And let us know, you guys, in the comments below if you like the markups and if it makes talking about design a little bit easier to follow along.
Yeah, this is normally we don't go this long on these streams typically, and normally we have stuff like on logotherapy, which you guys have watched before, where usually we have our designers prepare stuff ahead of time. This one we're trying to do real time. We're trying to talk to about these things very openly and transparently, so that you understand mine and Chris's thought process as we evaluate and look at these things and some of the things that we would tweak, knowing where we came from. So
let's get into it.
Yeah,
right?
let
okay,
us know.
so the first thing that Matthew and I talked about is get rid of this part of the tail. I don't think you need that. So what I would think we can do is just do the wing like this, right? And as I get more comfortable with this, I'm starting to get a feel for how this pen works, Matthew. Right? And so this little part at the bottom, which you can't see because I'm hovering over, but I'm going to draw it for you right now. So I think we could probably end it a little earlier so that the body separates from that.
Yeah, I like
and
that.
then pull this back up, right? So do this. And I think the jaw maybe...
Oh, yeah. I like that.
Right? So the rest of it can stay the way it is. So I think by having the wing up here, then that way it creates the shape, it implies the shape that's here without it completing the circle, and I don't think that's necessary.
Right.
Okay?
And what I like about this too is, as you're just quickly drawing the curves there, I like the top of the head. You added like a little bit more of a ramp in the curve. It adds a little bit more movement in the piece. So the more you have these expressive curves where they're kind of like almost, if you continued it, it would fold over on itself eventually. Like those little wispy lines helps create a lot of dynamic movement when you're looking at something like this.
Then what I would do is, let's see if I can simulate this. For the details of the wing and all that stuff, I would go light here. Then I would get thick here and go thin here.
Right.
And just reduce that down. So thin to thick, thin to thick.
Right.
And then create movement, right? So for this little detail, again, thin to thick, and then thin it out. And maybe not even do both sides of that, because I want to get rid of detail. I don't think we need all that stuff. So same here, thin to thick, and then just little arrows pointing. And that's all I think it needs. Okay, and then later on we're going to cut some shapes into here to show you guys what the heck I was talking about earlier about creating the illusion of space and form. Okay, having said that, Matthew, if you can hang in there for another 5 to 10 minutes, should we hang in there, you guys, or should we just go to lunch and call it a day?
No, I think we should reveal the top 5.
Okay, are people also super hangry themselves?
No, there's 260 watching.
You want me to reveal the top 5, or do you want me to do the Illustrator demo?
I want you to reveal the top 5.
So we're closing out then.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're closing out. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So no
All right.
demo. All right.
No demo, some other time. Well, I don't want to listen to Ricky, so I've done the demo anyways.
He
What
got
does Ricky
vetoed.
know?
I think
That's fine.
Ricky's also hangry. That's why he's
We're all
passively
hungry, guys.
aggressively
We're
pushing
all-
them this.
Shoot, let me get my palette. Where's my palette? Well, if I can't find my palette, it's game over right now.
It's Game of Thrones.
Where'd it go?
And James Betts is in the live stream right now. He said, "Cheers for the feedback. Totally agree." Oh, there's Kento Yoshida.
Hey!
Kento, are you a man or a woman? It doesn't really matter to us, but I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Another guy said his name was Kento, and he was from Japan. He said he was a guy, so I'm going to assume
Properties.
maybe.
Yeah, I want to read this from Kento Yoshida. He says, "Hello, the Future team. Thank you so much for the critique. It's so inspiring, and
Yay!
I'm so
Woo!
pumped."
Yeah!
He said,
Kento!
I'll make the changes to the sigils based off of the critique.
Love
Also,
it.
thank you for the
Love
feedback.
love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, guys. Let's just jump to my screen. We're not going to do the full-blown thing. This is going to be those cooking shows where you get to see some of it, right? So here's the original, right? And we already marked it up over there. So what I did was, who sent me this file again? James
Yeah.
Betts. Okay, I just took your file and converted it into guides, right? So one thing, I'm going to give you guys a hot tip. If you go to Command K and you go to your guides, this is kind of set up by default as a really bright blue color, and it's super hard to see. So all you do is, now that you can pick any color, just drag it to be a little bit darker blue. So that's what I did there. And I changed it from lines to dots, because lines can also be very overpowering when it comes to this kind of stuff. I just want to let you guys know about that. Anyway, so I've already gone and started drawing some things. So I just went in here and started drawing some shapes. So this should reflect
Oh, cool.
the ideas I was talking about. Now, you might say, like, shouldn't this be with perfect geometry? And yes, you could, instead of just drawing it freehand like the way I've done it, right?
Right.
And that's probably the smarter way to do it, but just in the interest of time. So I'm just looking at how these shapes taper in and out, right?
Yeah.
So here, because I hadn't drawn this before, we can play around with the head, because Matthew liked a more pronounced brow, right? And what we're looking for is a little bit more movement, a little bit more curvature. So I'm pretty smooth, adept at using the pen, so this is pretty easy to do for me. But those of you guys that need some practice, there's a great online tool. It's the Master the Pen tool game, right? And you can do that. Now, I'm going to explain a couple things. Historically, or not historically, traditionally what I would do is I would bring the body down and draw that and start intersecting shapes instead of just trying to complete it, because what happens is this line here sometimes will not optically connect with this line.
Right.
So really I should detach these two things, which I can do right now. Where's my scissor tool? I think it's in here. Scissor tool, I can just cut it right here. Boom. And then I'm going to hide this part just for a second so you guys can see. So I'm going to bring back my pen tool, which is P, and then drag it down here and then complete this shape any which way that I want. That way I know that optically it's one smooth, continuous part of the body.
Nice.
Okay? The other thing that I probably want to do, and we have to make a decision here, do we want to terminate and end on a hard edge here, or do we roll smoothly right back into the bottom of the circle? What do you think, Matthew? You tell me and I'll do it.
I'm sorry, I was paying attention
You see
to
this?
the stream.
You
Yeah.
see this intersection right here?
Yes.
Should it be a hard cut, or should I try to roll off the bottom of this right back into the bottom of the circle?
Ooh. let's let
Is
it
it
roll.
stronger?
Let's let it roll into the bottom of the circle.
Okay, so then what I need to do is I need to add another anchor point here, which I will. And then I'll take this and I'll move it to the bottom of the circle. And I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see this a little bit better. The way that you make it perfectly transition into the bottom of the circle is these handles have to be tangent to that circle. So if it's not tangent to it, it won't smoothly and you'll get a little kink there, okay? So let's assume that that's as smooth as I'm going to be able to make it for the show. Okay? So that, oh, see, now I'm jacking it up already.
Right, because now the handles are competing because they're so
They're
far
all fighting
out.
each other.
Right.
Okay, so this one is too far.
Right,
Okay.
but I know Chris's pro
You know
tip
the
on
idea,
this.
right?
Yeah, it's just like the less points you have to form your curves, the more perfect they're going to be.
Yep. So what we can do is after we're done here, we can use the shape builder. One thing I want to do is just make sure everything intersects, and that way we can do the shape builder and we can do this part of the body, right? So for right now, I'm going to show you just some quick tips, and I'm going to finish this neck. And the way that I know where to put these anchor points is I think about a circle, and a circle has 4 anchor points. So one on the top, one in the middle, and one on the side, and that's what I'm doing there.
Nice.
So this one also has a really nice transition down. I think
Yeah.
I overshot it right there. So what I'm going to do is hard and then do this,
Have
right?
that curve, yep.
Yeah, so I'm not going to finish the rest of the body of this dragon.
Right.
Let me just do it over here. Okay, so we can draw this wing separately and bring those two together, okay? So I think I have most of the shapes that I want. I'm going to do one more thing here. I lied. I'm going to just go for it. You guys hang in there.
Oh, this is
Everybody that's
good.
hungry.
I'm leaning in.
Okay,
Oh,
all right,
this is
cool.
great.
Hopefully I hook you with the learning part, and then you don't think about the food that you're not eating.
Right.
Okay, so I'll do this here. Again, we probably should snap a guide to make sure that this is centered, right? That this is the middle point and these are equidistant, but in the interest of time in the demo. So now I have those 3 shapes. That's all crossing. Now I believe I can go ahead and do the shape builder thing, okay? Which everybody should know at this point. I select all these things. I think it's called Shift M, right there, Shift M. So every time you hover over a tool, try to master and remember the keyboard shortcuts. That's how you become a power user, okay? So if I draw over this, and I select this, and I select this, and I take this part, and I'm kind of done. Now I'm going to hold down Option on the Mac. I don't know what it is on the PC. I'm sorry. Not hating on PC. I just don't know. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of these parts. Now I should have all the shapes that I need, okay? Nope, did I screw up somehow? Go back to Shift M. I'm going to get rid of this. Yeah, I think I have all these things, right? I have some weird
Yeah, I don't know why
part
it's not
there. Why is it
catching
not
that.
doing that?
It's a
Okay,
weird
anyways,
little glitch.
so now I can take this, I'm going to hit Shift X, and I'm going to make it like that. I'm going to hide those guides, and now we can see that we have some shapes to work with. We don't need these little bits here. I could delete those now. And now I'm starting to realize a couple of things. One is I think I need to bring this shape in tighter so it can complete the circle, right? But that's what I would start to do right there, okay? I'm going to delete this because we don't need this. This is a horrible drawing.
Right.
You guys get that?
It's
Okay.
not great, but the fact that I think if you just squint at it and if you look at how it's asymmetrical, how it's utilizing the space, and how your eye is still completing the circle even though the points are not connecting. I think that was the whole point of this exercise, is just to show you guys how you can offset stuff, how you can add a little bit more dimension, and how you can visually still create these fun wispy elements that create a lot of movement within the shape of this. And even looking at this as one color, which is Chris's tip to all of you guys who started the challenge, start with black and white, because if that reads, that means you know that your contrast, your silhouette is very strong and it's very good. So before you add all the lines and the details and the textures and the colors, your silhouette has to be good first.
Yeah. So some of you guys don't know this, but I'm going to show you a really quick tip here. I should have done this when I still had the circle, is to define the center point of the circle. Maybe I'll get lucky right now and just select this. There it is. I got lucky. It's still there. So I'm going to turn my snap to point on. View, guide, snap to point. I'm going to snap this down, and it should just touch that, and there we go. That's the center of the circle, and that's really important in order for me to draw this part right here, okay? I'm going to show you guys how to draw that part really, really fast. So typically you start at the top. So if you have the pen tool, hit P for pen tool, and I think it's straight. Now, do we want it to be curved or we want it to be straight, Matthew?
That's a good question.
Just say one, I'll do it.
I want it to be curved.
Okay, you want it to be curved. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go up like that so there's a little curvature. And then I'm going to hook it back, and then I'm going to do this. Okay, so then it has a little kind of curvature to it, right?
I like that.
Okay, now it intersects the circle perfectly, which my thing doesn't, but the trick I wanted to show you, I guess I can help out whoever drew the sun logo before, right? Is if I take a circle from the center here and I draw it out to clip it right where it needs to be. I'm going to hit Shift X to change that. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to scale it up from the center. Sorry guys if I'm moving really fast for you.
No, this is great.
Okay, because you're like, I'm still hungry, Chris. Okay, so this way I can get a perfect cut that's circular, okay? I'll probably need to make some adjustments, so now I can do this again. I can hit Shift M and just keep this part and then get rid of all this other part. Okay, there. I think this time it'll work. And hit Shift X. Why didn't it do it? Demo fail again. There we go. Okay, there it is, all right? So now I'm going to take this sucker and I'm going to hit R for rotation. I'm going to hold down the Option key. I'm going to plant the anchor point right here, holding down Option. Click once. Sorry. Click once. And then I'm going to take this and rotate it while holding down the Option key, which will copy it, right? And now I hit Command D, and it'll go all the way around. Now I realize I messed up because I didn't pull it far enough. Okay, the anchor point is still there. I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to end it right there while holding down Option. Now I hit Command D.
Wow, that's so cool.
So you guys can do this, and it should be perfect. So I'm just going to hit, I'm still holding down D, and it's running around the track, and it's going to line up the top. Boom. So if you guys want to do that, and it's really simple, obviously I didn't find the center point because look at it, it's got thicker on the right side here. And I'm going to show you one last little trick here in terms of creating some of these interesting elements, right? So here, I'm going to take the pen tool, I'm going to draw up, probably put a point here, point down here, point up here, and then I'm going to finish off one right around here. Okay, now, assuming that followed that really well, which it doesn't, I'm going to make this, I'm going to shift the colors by hitting Shift X, and then I'm going to bring that stroke up, and I'll go to Properties here, and I'm going to fill it with a white stroke. Where's white? Is that white? Let's assume that's white. I'm not sure it's white. Okay, now I'm going to go to the Width tool. Where's that tool? Here it is, right here. So if I hover over it, it's Shift W, shift the width. So Shift W there.
Love this
I
tool.
can then go over here and make this part a little thicker. Come on, make it thicker. Right? And then these parts taper in. So I can make this a little thinner or thicker. And that's all I'm going to do. So that's how you can do it. That's the cheap, easy, lazy way to do it. You guys could do it much better. But that's one way. Why isn't it doing it? Come on. So you guys can go and adjust these parts to your liking. And then you can outline or offset that and you can really adjust it. But that's how I would do that. Okay, so let me hide that part. I've created a monstrosity here, you guys. I'm so sorry. And I just wanted to give you guys some tips on how to draw your vector art a little bit different. Okay, I think it's time to announce the winners. The winners. Oh, don't go on my screen yet. I need to do something. Don't do my screen yet, okay? George of the jungle. Here we go. To the screen. Here are the top 5 finalists to what we're doing. You guys ready? Arryn. Top 5. Here we go. Number 1, in no particular order, here are the 5 that you're going to be voting on. This is from Taejin Kim. Taejin Kim, good job. Woo! Yeah! Okay. And next up is this one from Enrique Alonso. Enrique, good job. Okay. And you guys, before we get to the end, obviously we can only pick 5 out of 150 submissions, so they're going to be bound to be some broken hearts. Adrian Sai.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
All right.
Love this one.
Woo! Good job. And Kento Yoshida.
Whoa,
Hey,
Kento.
Hey, Kento, you got in there, man. Beautiful work. And last but not least,
Nice.
Jess Brown. Well done, you guys. Okay, I think I have more slides to go through, but we got to get out of this show. Matthew, do we need to tell them about what's coming up next?
Yeah, so in terms of voting, what's going to happen is shortly after this stream later today, if you go back to the short stack link, we're going to add the description in the comments, in the description below. You guys can go back there and you're going to see the top 5 that you can vote on.
Okay.
So that's going to be open through the weekend, through early next week. And at some point next week, we're going to announce the winners of round 1, how many points they won for round 1, and then we're going to announce the second challenge.
Challenge number 2.
Right.
Number dose.
Number 2.
3-part challenge series.
Which you guys know is going to be design a word mark for your chosen house. We'll give you all the details. You guys, whoever wins the entire thing is going to win a great set of prize set of things, whatever. I'm not speaking clearly now. And we're going to give stuff to you guys. That's it. This is
Wow.
Unofficial Design Challenge. You guys, thanks very much for tuning in to today's show. On behalf of the entire team, Matthew, Aaron, and Rick K, thanks for staying all the way through the live stream. See you guys next time. My name is Chris, and don't let your past define you. The future is what you make it. See you guys next time.